Alright, this video is about hearing. So, by now you should have done your Play-Doh ear, and so you should know some of the basic parts of the ear. This video I wanted to kind of focus in on the middle ear and the inner ear. So there's some specific things that I want to make sure that you know and have notes on. So, first of all, the sound is actually going to travel through your outer ear, which is obviously your outer ear is your pinna, through your auditory canal, and it is going to vibrate your eardrum. So your eardrum is in here, and it's kind of interesting because it looks like it's kind of a long ways in, but it's really not. Your eardrum is actually very sensitive, and so one of the things, for example, doctors will tell you is that how should you clean your ears? So think about this. How should you clean your ears? Most doctors will actually tell you, you should use like a damp cloth or the end of your towel or something, but doctors will tell you not to use Q-tips, which is what most of us use to clean our ears. I will freely admit I use Q-tips to clean my ears. Part of the reason why, they were afraid that you are going to rupture your eardrum if you stick it in too far, okay? But your eardrum is really important. Now, part of the thing also with kids is that, for example, my kids, I do sometimes go and clean their ears with Q-tips. I will admit that, but I try not to. I don't go in very far. But part of the problem is that they have so much waxy buildup when they're little. And the reason that is because of the fact that their auditory canal is actually really, really narrow, which is also why a lot of kids go and get tubes in their ears. Have you heard of kids getting tubes in their ears? Basically what happens when you get tubes in your ears is you're basically putting a tube in there trying to expand your auditory canal, because otherwise it gets clogged and they get frequent ear infections. So it's something that you grow out of, and nowadays you don't even, once they put tubes in your ears, they just dissolve. They don't even need to do a procedure anymore to take them out, so that's kind of cool. But you need to have your auditory canal open so that your eardrum can vibrate, otherwise you're going to have a problem hearing. So once the vibrations start with the eardrum, they are going to be passed on to these small bones located here. You can kind of see in my picture here. These are together called the ossicles, which you probably have already figured out from your ear model. But this is the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Okay, so and that is actually the order that they come in. The hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And those are going to be attached to your cochlea, and that's going to basically vibrate the fluid in your cochlea. So your cochlea is this kind of snail-shaped thing up here. Okay, so we're going to vibrate the cochlea and move the fluid in the cochlea. And the fluid in the cochlea also has this hair cell lining. And so there's these hair cells that are lining the cochlea. And that's going to produce impulses in the nerve cells that are attached to the cochlea that actually form the auditory nerves. The auditory nerve kind of comes out this direction towards your brain. The other part on top of the cochlea, these kind of like loop-de-loop things on top of the cochlea, those are our semicircular canals. Those aren't really a part of hearing, but they are a part of balance. So they do help with balance. They also are fluid-filled. So, for example, if you've ever, as a little kid, for example, gone and, twirled around a lot, and then you suddenly stop, and your head feels kind of woozy, like, whoa, okay? Basically what you're doing is you're sloshing around all that fluid in your semicircular canal, and when you stop, the fluid's still moving, and so it makes it seem very dizzy, right? Because that's what's helping you with balance. And then obviously the other part is that once you have the auditory nerve coming out of your ear, that's going to send the message to your auditory cortex, which we already know from our part of our brain is in our temporal lobe, right? So this is how the ear actually works. Now the only thing that is not in there, but it was in your ear model, was this tube right here. This is called the eustachian tube. That's the part of your ear that actually connects to your throat. So that's how your ear drains. As disgusting as that sounds, you have stuff draining out of your ear down your throat. Okay, so part of the problem when you get sick is your eustachian tube sometimes gets clogged and it's gross, and yeah, we'll move on. So how do we actually hear different frequencies and volume? So how do we determine the difference between something that's very, very quiet and something that's very, very loud, or something that is a very high pitch, that was not very good, or very low pitch? Okay, how does your ear actually determine that? Well, we have a couple of things. First of all, volume is determined by the amplitude of the sound waves. So we have sound waves that are coming in, and if you have an older stereo, maybe you have an older stereo where they actually go and show the sound waves on the stereo. It's kind of cool. But the amplitude, so how high the wave is going to tell you how loud the sound is. So when you come to a very loud section of the song, it's going to be very high amplitude. If it's a very quiet section of the song, it'd be a very low amplitude. Hopefully you heard that. Then the frequency, and I'm sorry, I have to fix this. The frequency or how the pitch is going to be determined by the wavelength, and so how long the wavelength is. The longer and more drawn out the wavelength is, the lower the pitch. Very, very low. Whereas if it's a very quick frequency and it's very close together, then it's going to be a very high pitch. Okay, so if you didn't know this already, you can actually test your hearing, and you probably had your hearing test before as far as being able to hear sounds, just general sounds, or the volume. But have you ever had your hearing tested for the pitch? So I have a very quick video for you to show you that.
This Friday,
sorry,
why critics and audiences
this is an advertisement
for Queen of Cochlea. David Oyelowo's performance is captivating. Academy Award winner Lupita Nyong'o is an absolute force. You will see Queen of Cochlea. Rated PG everywhere Friday.
As we grow older, we often lose the extreme ends of our hearing spectrum. So, how many of the following sounds can you hear? How old are your ears? Okay, if you can hear 8,000 hertz, you're both alive and not hearing impaired. But let's keep raising the frequency. How high could you hear? If you could hear all of those frequencies, you're probably under 20 years old, but that won't last forever. Unlike other organs such as the liver or skin, the inner ear does not have the capacity to regenerate. In your ear, there are thousands of tiny nerve cells called hair cells. These are responsible for picking up different frequencies and sending the signal to the brain where it's processed. But as you age, the continual exposure to noise and loud sounds can break, bend, and destroy these cells. So why do the high frequencies go first? It turns out that the hairs tuned to high pitches are the first to encounter sound waves. As a result, they experience more stress and tend to degenerate earlier, which is why the older you are, the harder it is to hear high pitches.
Okay.
Got a burning question you want answered?
Don't know that. Okay, so the frequency is determined by the wavelength, and so, by the way, if you did not notice, they did talk about in there as far as why it is that, so don't freak out if you could not hear like the under 30 or the under 20, because particularly the under 20, YouTube compresses the video and so that affects the sound. But I tried to make it in high definition, and it also recommended playing it with headphones on, so you can try that. But there are some frequencies that I, for example, who am older, obviously, than you, that I cannot hear. I could hear the under 40, but I could not hear the under 30 or the under 20. So, why does that happen? Well, we have a couple of things. First of all, keep in mind we have, as the video explained, we have place theory that does explain how we hear things. And so place theory is basically looking at the place of those hair cells in your cochlea. So remember, the cochlea is kind of like a snail, and the beginning part here has where you hear high frequencies, and towards the end is where you hear low frequencies. So the idea of place theory is that we hear high frequencies because the hair cells in the beginning are going to be activated. Now, as the video pointed out, is that what happens over time is that it's kind of like, and I think your book made this analogy, it's kind of like if you have carpet in your house, and if you've ever left a really heavy piece of furniture on your carpet for like years, and then you try and move that heavy piece of furniture off the carpet, and what's the carpet like? It's like all smashed down or everything, and to try as hard as you can, you're probably going to have a really hard time getting that carpet to come back, right? Same thing here. This is what we call sensory neural hearing loss. And sensory neural hearing loss is basically where you're going to wear out those hair cells. And the first ones that are going to go are the ones at the beginning, obviously, with the high frequencies because they get activated more. So that's place theory. However, it doesn't really do a very good job of explaining low frequencies. Frequency theory, on the other hand, explains low frequencies. This is the idea that you have frequency theory is how many hair cells are actually being activated. Okay, the higher the frequency, it's going to have more hair cells activated. The lower frequency, the lower the activation. You're not going to have as many hair cells activated. Again, frequency theory better explains low frequencies. Place theory explains high frequencies, and kind of a combination of the two explains kind of medium frequencies. So, but you will see that, for example, when we have people age over time, they will have some sensory neural hearing loss. And how much depends upon, obviously, how much exposure you have to loud sounds and high frequency sounds. The other type of hearing loss is conduction hearing loss, which is a lot more rare, and that has more to do with conduction hearing loss with problems and damage to everything that basically comes before the cochlea. So the sensory neural hearing loss is a much more common hearing loss. All right, that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions.